Okay, so I've reached a point now where I basically have to start reorganizing code, making it all as clean as I can again because a bunch of stuff's gone in. All the stuff to do with editing gradients, all the stuff to do with snapping to grids, although that stuff is not too bad so far. And of course all the stuff to do with rendering as a gradient, which did involve a bunch of stuff being added. Yeah, look at it all. It's horrible. On the other hand, there is the fact that I haven't really tested yet all of the components of the gradient rendering, which is to say the animation, the selecting of the appropriate gradient through time. Now, I think it should work. And I always think that. But let's see. Because one of the purposes of the gradient rendering is to try to create an impression that you're seeing something that you're not. Let's see. Let's do, well, yeah, it's going to be really difficult to visualize this, I must admit. And the ink I will have can be, well, I actually do want orange, but darker. Because I'm just setting this up to be drawing addition, because really I'm wanting a gradient. I will render it as a gradient. I'll instantly bump the recursions up to 7, because that'll be the minimum I'm doing. We'll decide the frames later. Line width is irrelevant with gradient rendering. This needs a bit of a rearrange, because some other options need to go in and to make this make more sense. The gradient button also needs finished. Anyway. Let me have a little faff first. Now, what sort of animation could I make that might look like a kind of stylized explosion? Now, it doesn't need to look, exactly like it. But it does need to sort of grow and have moving parts. I'll just start with this, because an aspect of these things is they're just about impossible, or I find it just about impossible to predict them. I like the way this spreads out. Probably what will happen in a render is there'll be an enormous bright blob, but let's just actually test. First off, I'm going to do a strange thing, which is to quit and run it again. Just because I still am totally confident about the line clipping, and every time I perform a render I expect trouble. Although I don't in this case, because no lines overlap with the sides. But anyway. I'm going to start overwriting this. Yeah, overwrite that. Did I overwrite 4? Okay, well, unsurprising that makes no sense, because what also is interesting is how I really don't know if this is ever going to make the sort of shapes I want it to. Let's just go with it. Here's what I want. I want it to top out in bright yellow, probably even brighter than bright yellow. The lowest values, though, I want to be totally transparent. This is revealing a problem with the way that rendering my color buttons here, obviously, in that they go completely transparent and it's just the rest of the GUI. I kind of find it cute, but it's not exactly practical. I really want to be able to move that thing. Anyway, actually I think going up to bright red, because it's coming from black, which probably isn't the best place. In here I'll have something else which will be like a transparent dark red. Makes sense? Does it make sense? It's like, what colour is that really? It's almost black. Is that really what I want? I don't think it is. It's like I want a kind of darker red. Do I? It's really hard to say. Because now I'm trying to think about this in terms of these things being against any background. So actually, maybe what I want is not a darker red, but just a more transparent red. I want another, and I want another. And prior to this, I want them all to be transparent. This is also revealing to me as I continue to do this. It's revealing what? It's revealing the limitations of having these regularly spaced control points in splines. The fact that my splines have regularly spaced control points is kind of illustrated by this setup here. And it's deliberate, and I could, code it such that they didn't have that, but that's not how it is just now. It's faster to have them not have. Like, it's faster if the splines are spaced, if the spline control points are spaced regularly. But anyway, for the time being, let me concentrate on this. What I want is for this to start to fade out, and actually for this to become more grey. Darker grey, to stay opaque. Have I done that right? Well, this actually, yeah, it's really hard to predict, and I should stop trying to predict too much. But here, okay, cancel that here. Take a copy of that, and here, pop it in there, and pop it in there, and make this one much less opaque. And take this, just tone it down a bit, keep it red, and take another, and here, this has become nearly grey, and it's starting to fade out. This has become darker grey, but is also starting to fade out, and this should have faded out almost altogether. Does any of this make sense? I'll just set this straight to 500. Okay, and apply. I'm glad the apply button worked there. Okay. Now, I'm going to render 8 recursions, and I'm going to render it to recursive image 4. Having the video capture running is a big hit to the render speed. Okay, well, it didn't work at all. But did it or did it not? It's hard to say. Highest pixel 94. No, it worked fine, I think. The main problem with it here is my high is 500. And I think the thing I'm going to do is boost the recursions and see what happens. Cursor image 4. Still drew quick, less than a second. It's only 1, 2, 3, 4. And now, yeah, highest pixels now jumped to 1500. Where is my thing? I must make it just show the image. Okay, well, that is not great. Let's have, I'll just keep this here, eh? Maybe that makes most sense. I will say you go down to 200. Oh, and it's still taking basically no time. Man. I look at this and I see problems. But it's also, yeah, going very fast. Why don't I just make it really difficult? I rarely do renders of 12 recursions, because most of the time I guess I have more than just 4 segments. And also I'm not really getting onto the meat of this. 11 seconds for a render. Okay, utterly hideous results. Instantly bleaching itself. Of course, I mean, I shouldn't be surprised. But also there's just not much body to it. Okay. Maybe I shouldn't be too surprised by that either. I gotta get things a bit more janky. Having added a point, I'm reducing the recursions. This is very low. I could just make it -1. See, there the highest pixel is 24,000. It was the... I'm going to make it minus... no, I'm not. I've lowered the recursions. I've increased the number of lines. I'm going to take it back to 2000. Down to 10 recursions and 7 seconds nearly. Well, things about it are working. The transparency is working. Other things about it don't look great. It's like this contrast is obviously not nice for it. How can I get it to be more all over the place? This is just a kind of learning process about figuring out 8 seconds. I have also learned that the... Okay, yeah. This is actually... Now I'm beginning to see things that I want to see. In a way. I wonder what will happen if I do this. At number 3 this time. I didn't change anything except the position on the timeline. And... I have to get a better image viewer. Right. Well, that's interesting. It seems that basically worked. This is early in the timeline. The majority of the stuff's transparent. Later in the timeline, everything is opaque or much more is opaque. Okay. And what is it's going to make it more jumbly? Like if I render static there, this is a 3. Well, the main thing is this does look like the thing is basically working. I'm just a bit more than halfway through the timeline. When this renders, I will, and also every time the lines start crossing here, I start to realize this is a potential crash situation. And this number of long lines, 10 recursions, the difference in rendering time is obvious. Last time, 8 seconds, up a bit on the time before when it was drawing a lot of long lines. This time, a really long time, 42 seconds. And that's not it. That is it. Wow. Okay. Don't like it much, but it is interesting. It's wildly overlapping the edges of the screen here, I notice. Let's see. If I take, if I get this to the front, where does this line go? I'm just trying to like imagine what sort of move I would have to make to have a realistic sort of burst of flame. I don't think I'm going to manage it here. I'm seeing the way the render is coming out and thinking this is not the way to do it. It's actually just something different. But anyway, I'm going to just persevere because it's fairly easy to set stuff like this up. Goes out then comes back. Now that's not what I want. I want loop off. So this just does that. But over the course of the frame, very near the end of the frame, I should see basically nothing. I forget, I've got a minute long wait. And it's been 17 minutes already. My mouth is dry, sorry. So, 15 seconds, much easier, much faster. Yeah, because in a way that is sort of, you know, it's not. Well, actually it is. Okay, right. I need to open this up again, and I need a new one of this, and everything needs to be obliterated. And I need to apply it. And you know what? I'm going to render it, but I'm going to do something like this. I'm going to change this to be 256, and this to be 2. Now here we go again. I'm suddenly and drastically changing the size of my output. I've been faffing around with the internals of... Anyway, I'm not going to go on and on about it. Now, I really need to improve this when I think about it. I need to get some kind of gadget that I can slide along that'll show me the actual, some sort of display of the actual gradient at any point in the time. But for the time being, I've got to make this easy on myself. So I'm going to take this down to 8. I'm going to render this static to 4. Okay, how quick? Really fast. How dim, tiny and dim, and that is at point 1, point 0. Right up here it should be at its most opaque. Static, 3, okay, 3, and it's tiny and little. Well, that is to be understood, or to be expected, sorry, in one way. Also, I'll take this down to 1000 and I'll render the same thing again to get some idea of what that actually looks like. Yeah, you know what, I'm just going to go for this. Just because I want to see what that changing... Let me finish the sentence. What the changing gradient looks like, see if it works. And I can render a lot of frames. Maybe I'll render like at 25 frames a second. 250 would be 10 seconds. It's actually too long. Like 3 seconds. I'll say 75. Video loops 1. I will make that 10 because, well, just because. 10 loops, 75 frames, 256 by 256. And I think I am ready to go, and I will call it burst. But I'll give it a capital B. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so again we see the terrible rendering state, and also the fact that the integration with the FFmpeg goes as far as starting the program. Then you have to peek at Task Manager to make sure it's finished before quitting Recursor. Not nice, but anyway. This looks like it's getting on. Oh, and there it goes, rendering now. Where are we? Did that it? Is that it done? Burst. Tiny. Okay. Well, interesting. It still didn't go dim. Didn't totally fade out the way I wanted to. I know why as well. In fact, I think I don't do, which I need to do, is I don't multiply in the alpha channel. I've never understood if it's something I absolutely need to do, but I guess it sort of is in a way. I do it in my gadgets, I do it in my other objects, but I'll do it here too. And I'll have another render because it goes super fast. Honestly, this is not quite right, obviously, but it's not that wrong either. Things about the way it changes colour there at the end, things about the way it animates, some things aren't right. And I wonder how much I can improve this sort of thing with practice, and how much actually some things about it look good. Anyway, I think I will have to, first off, it's not long, it's 25 minutes, but I think I'm going to call it a day just now. It looks like the gradient is working, but I'm not multiplying in the alpha channel correctly. So when I come back, that's the thing that I'll do. I'm still delighted to say it seems to be running, and I'm pleased with the overall look of the gradient renders. I should get to the end of this though. One thing I did think is that I had promised myself I would try switching to banks. This would be a good time probably to create a backup of this, time a couple of renders as it is, do the switch to banks and do the comparison. um, monkey arrays have a whole load of functionality that I don't need for this, and I imagine, in my mind, using a pen could be faster, but I'll soon see. Next time.